Jesse Pinkman, Aaron Paul! And as Walter White, Mr. Bryan Cranston! And the executive producer, creator of Breaking Bad, Vince Gilligan!
Hi.
Hey, how's everyone doing? Brian, I just want to touch it. No, it goes in your mouth hole. It goes in your mouth hole. Mouth hole. This was genius. Cranston was walking the floor with the Walter White mask on. Very fitting. Oh my God, is it foreshadowing? What's happening? What does that mean? Who made the Walter White death mask?
A guy named Landon who is here today somewhere. Landon, are you here? Where are you? There he is, right there in the middle.
Well done.
Well done. It was extremely fun. It was the most fun I've ever had walking the floor, taking a lot of pictures. I tried to use a higher voice, like, yeah, I made the mask myself. It was fun, but so it was fun meeting all of you, and you met me.
Hiding in plain sight, Bryan Cranston as Bryan Cranston. So Vince, let's sort of, what has the last 5 seasons meant to you? Where were you emotionally when it started? Where do you feel like you've ended up in the last 5 seasons?
Good question. I just, when it started, emotionally, I was in a place where I very much wanted a job. And, I did not foresee this happening. God knows I didn't foresee being in the Hall H at Comic-Con and seeing all these folks. Yeah, Hall H!
I hope you guys understand the magnitude of what Hall H is. Like, TV shows used to be in the smaller one, but now that you guys have taken the largest space at Comic-Con, I think is incredible for where the show started.
Yeah, bitch!
I like that you're perpetuating it at least. How many times a day do people yell bitch at you?
I can't even begin to count.
Yeah, bitch, Hall H! Counting his wife, or no?
Yeah, that counts. So Brian, for Walter, what's his journey been? We've seen this character descend into this world, but then sometimes I wonder, like, was he always that guy? Or do you think he's changed?
I think every single person can run the gamut of emotions. We have the full spectrum of emotions available to us, and if under the right circumstances, desperation, need, greed, whatever the case may be, depression, you push those buttons at the right time and anyone can become dangerous. And that's what happened to Walter White. Those buttons were all pushed at one time and he was in a dire situation. And so he did go from Mr. Chips to Scarface.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, a lot of different people have their opinions on when that turn was, but to me, really, it was that first episode when he decided to try to become someone he wasn't.
Yeah.
And that was it. He was on a slippery slope and sold his soul.
Well, I think the entire tone of the show is encapsulated in the first 5 minutes. You're in class, and you're, oh, he's dead!
Oh, man.
Heisenberg down! Thanks.
You're teaching your class, it's the first 5 minutes of the show, and you're talking about chemistry, and you say, oh, you're just staring at yourself now. That's really creepy.
Keep your hands on the table.
Now you're talking into your own face.
Yeah, I actually can.
If you think I'm not going to get a picture of that, you're out of your mind.
It actually works pretty well.
Kiss it, kiss it, kiss it.
Yeah! There you go. Yeah! Do it.
No tongue.
You are an attractive man.
But you say, Walter says to his class, he's talking about chemistry, and he says, growth, decay, transformation. Do you feel like that's what the series is ultimately about?
That is, I mean, I gotta live here.
Now talk about the most serious thing you can think of.
Well, you know, as Vince wrote in the very first episode, it was about change, and the entire series was about changing, accepting change. And for us, who are used to television, it was a case of being able to because when you think of the history of television has always been about staying the same. And now all of a sudden we're asking the audience to accept changing constantly.
Yeah.
It just has
No, I completely agree with everything that you're saying right now. I miss you so. I have missed you so much.
It's really what the show's about.
Oh my God, what's happening?
So much subtext you didn't even know was there.
I actually have a lot of slobber
I was not aware.
on my mouth from you.
It just, the mask has this look on his face like, no, please, no more. Aaron, what has been Jesse's journey? He's had a rough time. It seems like he's trying to do the right thing, but then he slips. Where is he at now?
Now, he's Jesse Pinkman has been through he's been through a lot, and now he's going into the final season of the show. He's terrified of this man, so he's just trying to.
Jesse is in the final season of a show?
Oh shit.
You know what I mean. Yeah, he was just this, at the beginning of the series, kind of this lost kid struggling to kind of find his way, searching in desperate need of some guidance, and he, stumbles across Walter White, who he's very impressed by, and starts cooking with him, and now he just wants to stay as far away from him as possible and just try and stay alive.
And you've won 2 Emmy Awards for your portrayal of Jesse Pinkman.
Yeah! That's all because of Vince Gilligan. But yeah.
How do you feel, obviously the show is, there are some light moments in the show, but the show is intense. And I think one of the reasons that it'll probably be good to have an after show is like Walking Dead. Some people just need a therapy after an episode. They need a hug. They need to feel like everything is okay. What is it like when you're shooting and it's day after day of, just intensity?
Believe it or not, our show, obviously it's very dark and we deal with some dark storylines, but the set is very loose and very comical. And it's really because of this man. I've told him this so many times, he's the most professional person I've ever worked with, but also the most immature man I've ever experienced, as you can tell, which is a beautiful combination. But yeah, it's a really fun, crazy set. It's great.
I want to talk to Anna for a sec, and Skylar's had a really interesting journey in the show too, which I didn't foresee, and she really, you start discovering depth, like from the first moment you see her light up a cigarette, you start seeing these things where you're like, oh, she's not perfect, how do you view her?
Well, I think Vince had this really interesting idea about Skylar from the very beginning, which was similar to she was sort of the parallel to Walt, in that I think she had dreams deferred in the same way that Walt did from the very beginning. So when you see them in that flashback, they are a couple with everything ahead of them, and they think they're going to go out and conquer the world, but life really threw them some curveballs, and they dealt with it the best they could. But they're not miserable, I don't think, but they're not living the life that they thought they would, certainly. And I think that she's dealing with a lot of disappointment inside of herself as well, but she would never say that to anybody or admit it. So I think that she's got the same kinds of things living inside of her that he has living inside of him, so that when she finds out what's going on, instead of turning him in to the police, instead of running away, instead of doing any number of the things that she could have done, she very specifically stays in the situation and thinks that she can outsmart it the same way that he thought he could outsmart
Do you
it.
think that's how she is able to rationalize everything or justify, like, oh, I can fix it?
Yeah, I think she thinks that's her downfall as a human being. I think that she thinks she can do things along the way. She keeps thinking, if I do this, it'll make it better. If I do this, it'll make it better. But actually, each action she takes just makes it worse.
Do you honestly believe that these characters feel like, yeah, we can probably have a normal life at some point, or do you feel like, it seems like they want that to be the case, but do you feel like it's possible?
I think that she hopes against hope that it might be possible to eke by, just to make it, somehow to make it, to let the clock run out, or to just somehow, that somehow it'll all work out. And I think that in the back of her mind, she's always got the kids and the kids' safety and their interests at heart. But I think that she knows somewhere inside of her that it's probably not going to turn out well, but she's hoping.
Do you think it's a good family?
Ooh, I think that I think that it was always my belief that they really love each other and that they really keep trying to reach through that, and through all the seasons, everything that happened between Walt and Skylar, all the power plays, all the things that happened, I think that they continued to try to reach through that. And even at the beginning of this season, at the end of, I guess, season 5, part 1,
5A.
5A, they're really still trying somehow to reach out towards each other in a funny way. So I don't know what makes it's not a normal family,
No.
but what makes a normal family?
I guess I probably have the same question to RJ. Do you think the Whites are a good family? How do you think Walter Jr. feels at this point?
I think he loves his family, to be completely honest. He doesn't know anything about what's going on, so how could he not? I mean, really.
Because it feels like he's drifted away. I mean, like, it seems like
Well, yeah, but I think at the end of the day, it's all this stuff that they have been through and along the way and that they will continue to go through. I think he really cares about his mom and his dad, and he's pretty much lost them already, and he's got them back, and he's grasping to whatever he can at the moment, I think.
And what's the experience been like for you these last 5 seasons? Like where you started, how did it affect you as RJ?
And I spent my whole teenage life in Breaking Bad. I'll be 21 in August. I started the show when I was just turning 14, and it's who I am today. I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't have the knowledge and know-how that I do today to be able to do what I do without the show and without Brian and Anna and everyone, really. It's like most people had high school, most people had school. I had Breaking Bad. So yeah.
So chemistry.
Yeah, I did a lot of chemistry. We're setting up a lab on stage.
No, you took out the wrong message. Dean, I want to ask Dean. Hank is a really interesting character, and then one of the things that I think is so brilliant about the way that Vince writes the show is that you see these characters at the top and you go, that's a one-dimensional guy, he's just kind of he's just that guy. And then as the episodes unfold, the layers start peeling back and you see the cracks and you see the damage and you see that he's trying to maintain and just be a person. What's your view of Hank?
I think my view of Hank is I love him. I think he's a great guy. I think he's saddled with morality, and he can't get around it. And maybe that's a good thing or maybe that's a bad thing. But he's the one guy I think that he can't. His conscience won't allow him to do the wrong thing, and to his detriment. He could have lied about beating up Jesse Pinkman and avoided getting his head cut off by a couple of Mexican dudes. But he didn't, and he tried to live through it, tried to do the right thing, So that's my view of Hank. I think he's that guy.
How do you play him as a performer? How do you play him with the kind of exterior that he has but then just sort of eke out the little bit of damage that's underneath.
Yeah, I think that, especially in that kind of a job, or any job like that, you have to put on a certain mask of masculinity, and that can take on various things like being a blowhard or making jokes and trying to, disguise or put a mask on any of the fear that you might have actually doing a job like that. And then when it starts to eke out a little bit, it was great. Usually you don't get a chance to do that on TV. It was really nice that Vince wrote that stuff and allowed that character for the audience to see an underneath to a character like that. I thought was a really fun thing to play.
Yeah.
Dean does that in real life too, put on a mask of masculinity, and I think he does it rather well. He's a very effeminate man, but you wouldn't know it by how he presents himself.
We all have masks. We all have masks.
Let's talk to Odenkirk for a sec.
What's up? I'm just a big fan of Breaking Bad who got a good seat.
Well, you have an excellent seat because Saul, again, the show has moments where it's sort of like, emotionally, it's like a paddleball game where Vince, you knock people out to the edge of what they can take, and then you introduce a character like Saul, which sort of like, brings you back. I wouldn't, he's a funny character, but not in a ridiculous comedy way. What does Saul have a soul? Like, what do you think about his character, Bob?
He's a sweet fella. He's very good at law. He's got taste in clothing and office architecture. He knows how to put on a show. He's a fun character to play, and it's all written. Everything I say is scripted into the script. I just do the lines. People always ask me if I improvise, because I've done a lot of comedy, and so the character's funny, but I don't improvise at all. Every single thing that I say is scripted, and I enjoy doing that, because it's different from my regular job.
As is what he just said now, all scripted, by the way.
Thank you. Yes. Comic-Con tells us what to say here.
Well, no problem.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, so what do I think about Saul? I think that the key to Saul is, and Vince has said it to me, and I've had actually fans say it, is when they say it with alarm and surprise, is he's good at what he does. And that's sort of the thing, is like you see a lot of boobs on TV, they're always fun to laugh at. All kinds of boobs. I'm keeping it clean, just as they say. Boobs and lunatics but in the case of Saul, he's funny and yet he actually gets stuff done. So that makes him worthwhile to spend your time with, I think.
Well, I think, Vince, when you're casting the show and, you bring Brian on the show, you bring Odenkirk on the show, people know them obviously people know Brian from doing a lot of film work too, but they're largely known for, like, they're funny guys. So what was it that you saw in comedy performers that you were like, I can take this and they can bring something to it?
I got to tell you, well, first I was lucky to have known Brian from the X-Files, 1999, I think, put him in an X-Files episode, and only knew him then as a dramatic actor. But having said that, getting to work with comedy geniuses like Brian, like Bob, and all these folks on this panel, by the way, insanely funny people. I think comedy. Listen, I say this as a lay person. I've never performed in my life. I don't know what acting. I've never been an actor, but it seems to me from my position outside of performing that comedy is a lot harder to do than drama. It's all hard, but I would hire a comedian any day of the week to play a dramatic part, because if they have the chops doing comedy, if they have that natural timing, those internal rhythms that you can't, I imagine you can't teach someone. You either have it or you don't. If they can do comedy well, they can certainly do drama, it seems to me. So.
Yeah. Let's get some time for some audience questions, and then I do want to congratulate Bryan Cranston, who just got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Who are you near? You were near to do the star with him?
I actually didn't get a chance to see it. They cover it up with carpeting And your star is just exposed, so I didn't know who was around me. I don't know who my neighbors are.
So if we see a guy in a creepy Walter White mask just staring at it all day,
Yeah.
it's probably you.
Indeed.
Yeah. Let's start with the first question right here. What is your name, sir?
Hi, I'm Al.
Hey, Al.
So nervous to be in front of the Empire business. All well-deserved Emmys for all of you. Out of all the iconic moments that I can think of, like Dean's battle with the brothers, or the dinner scene between the main characters, or my personal favorite, Run. Can you, this goes to all of you, can you just think of any iconic moment that you can think of that may be your favorite?
That's a good one. Iconic moment.
Well, certainly some iconic dialogue comes out. Like, I am the danger. Or, I'm the one who knocks. You know, certainly has resonance, you know, and so those pop out. I think from the most impactful scene that I shot, I think, is when Jane died. And Walt had another turn in his character, and he allowed this young girl to die. And that was horrific in many different ways playing it, but the actors in there are so fantastic.
What about you, Aaron?
Oh man, maybe the taste like a scab line was pretty great. Or yeah, bitch magnets.
How about robots?
A
Tell
robot.
the robot story, yeah.
Tell the robots.
Oh yeah, so we were shooting 4 days out in the middle of the desert, and there was the scene where we're trying to build something to save us, and I forget what the line originally was. You know what it was?
Well, I'm trying to teach him a lesson, and you know what we're going to do. He mentioned it before. What we really need to do is to build a battery.
Yeah.
Right. We would need to make a battery in order to charge the RV to get out. And so we're shooting this scene. It's 16 hours in, and
It's a Friday night. It was the last scene, and we do it, and they're like, "All right, cut. That's a wrap. Let's call it a night." And then I forget who was it. Schuster.
Yes, Schuster.
Yeah, Nick Schuster, our focus puller, said, "Man, I wish you would have said a robot when you're like walking out, like asking Walter White what we're gonna build." And I'm like, "That's a really good idea." So we just said, "Wait, there's a hair in the."
Yeah, we faked that there was a problem with the camera, just so that they would allow us to shoot one more take.
Yeah.
So we actually bullshitted our way through that, and oh yeah, there's something wrong. We gotta
we gotta do it again. One more.
And that's when you uttered those words. It was fun.
A robot, yeah.
Excellent. What is your question, man?
Hi. I just wanted to know if in season 3, when Walt brings home the pizza and throws it and it lands on the roof, if that was on purpose or a just really awesome coincidence.
That cost $180,000 in CGI, computer-generated imagery. It's amazing. It was very charitable of Sony and AMC to foot the bill on that. It was very expensive. It took ILM quite a lot of computing power. No, actually, tell the real story.
Well, that was an enormous pizza that I truly had to hold up with 2 hands. It was so heavy. And they scored the box so that when I was going to throw it, the pizza would slide out and it would separate from the box. And so I think it was Adam Bernstein who was directing that, wasn't it? And he said, "Okay, I'd like you to throw the pizza and land it on the roof." That's nearly impossible, but if I have a shot at it, I can do it when I'm near the front bumper of the car. But I can't try to throw a pizza on the roof. It's just out of frustration. I'm flinging it, right? So I kind of guessed the weight of it and the trajectory, what it would have to be, and then we just rolled. And first take. Up it goes, lands on the roof, everything perfect because the special effects guys had monofilament ready they're gonna pull the pizza up and then erase the filament out in post-production and all these kind of things. They were thinking about how to get that pizza in that position, and we just got really lucky on the first take.
And you can never do it again after that.
No, we couldn't do it again. It's like, Adam wanted to do it again. I go, you're insane to try to do it again. It'll never, ever work again. And of course it didn't.
So Vince, this sort of leads into a broader question of how much of the beats of the show were planned out, how much throughout the seasons are you sort of on the fly? I had read an article where you were talking about Hector Salamanca, and you were like, oh, he was so great that we just, wanted to see more of him.
Oh, absolutely, with a wonderful actor, Mark Margolis, who played Hector Tio in the wheelchair. When we got that first episode he was in, he's just a guy who basically rings a bell and scowls in that first episode out in the boondocks with Tuco. But we knew we wanted a good actor, and then we get Mark Margolis, and this is like, getting, Michael Jordan to coach your Pee Wee basketball team. This guy's a great actor, and we loved him personally. So then at that point you say, how can we bring this guy back? And that has happened with so many people. It actually leads into a question you were asking earlier about, when you're talking to Dean, how do we know how you learn things about actors. When I had first met Dean, when we cast him, and the original conception of Hank was probably not nearly as interesting as the character became. And that is because I didn't know Dean at that point. Once I got to know him, know what a great guy he is, what a wonderful actor, what a depth and complexity of emotion and personality and interest he has, the character thus became more interesting because my 6 excellent writers and I got to know the man and got to write for him and write deeper for him. So it's the great thing about TV. It's this organic, living, breathing thing that grows with this collaborative effort of all these people in front of and behind the camera.
And I also want to have a huge hand for Betsy Brandt, who is shooting in New York and could not be here for this degree. Brilliant and one of the funniest people you could ever meet in life. And then also the people like Giancarlo Esposito and Kristen Ritter, and just all these people who really brought some other dimensions to the show that couldn't be here. What is your question, sir?
Yeah, I have a question for Vince. So the moment in the series where I feel like Walt transformed into a full-fledged villain is when he poisoned Brock. And he had this great scene last season where he was sitting on the couch with them, and they're kind of eyeing each other. So my question is we never saw it on camera. I was curious, how did Walt actually physically administer the Lily of the Valley to Brock?
That's an excellent question, and my writers and I would always tell the story to ourselves of the evil juice box man, who somehow, our best guess is, I can tell you that the way we worked it out on our timeline, he had just enough time to do it, but it would have been very tricky indeed. It was improbable perhaps, but not impossible, that he could have gotten over, once he got that idea, sitting by the, spinning the pistol and sitting out by the pool and waiting to die essentially, and then looking at that lily in the valley, contemplating the idea. At that point, I think probably what he did is he kind of crushed some of this stuff up, put it in a juice box or something, and then somehow snuck into, being a guy who's a teacher, he knows his way around a school, probably got into Brock's nursery school or whatever, swapped out. That's our sort of inner fiction, inner story, the writers and I, for how it happened. But it would have been a tricky time, but he was a very motivated individual at that point. He had to save his family, so that's my best guess on how it actually happened.
I like that you started that out with like, well, I don't really, and then gave a beat-by-beat description of exactly.
We talk all this stuff out. We want to. Sometimes it helps to figure stuff out amongst yourselves, even if you don't actually put it on the screen, because that one, admittedly, though, that was a tight timeline. So.
Well, I also want to announce that Sony this week released a digital multi-touch companion in the iBook store called Breaking Bad Alchemy, which will sort of be like a companion book to the show. It's super interactive. I know it updates with each of the episodes, and you were involved in it, so do you want to tell people?
Oh yeah, no, this thing is awesome. It's called Breaking Bad Alchemy, and it's an iBook, and I know very little about technology or iBooks or whatever, but they showed me this thing and got my input in it, got the input of my writers, the crew, the actors. There's, I think I want to say 350 or more interactive things. When you go through this book, you like press a picture of Walt, and all of a sudden you're watching a video, like an exclusive interview with Brian, and there's like 100 pages of inside stuff and stuff you can't find anywhere else. Video, audio interviews, text stuff, and really inside baseball kind of stuff for the show that is very interesting and very fascinating, and hope you guys enjoy it. It's available, I think, on the iTunes web store.
Yes, in the iBook store. I saw it.
iBook store.
Yeah, but it's not a book. I mean, it's sort of like it's an interactive manual for the show almost.
It's really cool. I mean, this is all like a brave new world for me, all this technology. But you go through it and you navigate it, and I don't know, it's pretty cool.
Awesome. What is your question, sir?
Yes, my question is for the whole cast. And from the beginning of season 1 to the episode that we're up to now, was there a point in your character's evolution that you had a hard time accepting?
Oh, that's a good one. Let's start in the opposite direction. Let's start with Dean.
Yeah, not being able to walk was kind of a tough one. And having to wear some kind of diaper thing they put me in. Whatever that was, it wasn't pleasant.
Well, what about you, RJ?
I don't know. I've always enjoyed playing Walt Jr. and I've liked every scene for the most part. It's been crazy. There's not really much that I haven't. There's not one thing I haven't liked and enjoyed about it. So.
Well, I have a question then. So, it's for you as RJ versus Walt Jr. When you're watching the show, are you like, how can he not know? Like, is there any point?
Yeah, every once in a while I'm like, yeah, I would have definitely saw that coming. knowing my family as well as I do, if that was happening, I would definitely be like, where is this coming from? But yeah.
What about you, Bob?
Oh, I think Saul does everything right, and I've never had a problem with a single movie he's made. I love it, and what can be said? He's the most perfect character in the show. He has his life in balance. He lays on the floor and does that squiggly thing gets his back aligned with the little electric thing. You saw that, right? He's a Zen master of the show. I haven't had a problem. I think I personally have so much fun playing those violent scenes where I'm being attacked by one of these lunatics, these other characters. But as far as Saul having a hard time with the choices he makes, I think the hardest thing for Saul was when he wanted Jesse to go visit Brock. And there was some emotion in Saul. He was like clearly feeling like he wanted to get this family together. So Saul like revealing some personal feeling about humanity is a bit of a challenge for Saul.
I always think he's probably the most grounded character, and I think one of the reasons that I see him that way is that all these other characters, it feels like, are struggling with something that they don't want to admit or they don't want to face about themselves. But Saul's like, yeah, what are you gonna do? I'm a piece of shit, and it's great.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he's comfortable with who he is.
That's right. Yeah, and there's people like that. They're scary. But no, fun to play.
What about you, Anna?
I think at the beginning it was a little hard for me to understand some things about Skylar because she is such a shrouded character in some ways, and at the very beginning it was a little difficult for me to understand sometimes just how strong she was. And Vince helped me understand that she is not a person who is ever going to sit in the corner and wring her hands and weep at any of this news that came her way. So for me, being a more overtly emotional person, I had to work towards who she is, which is a person who really takes the information, processes it, and deals with it, and goes into action rather than, into emotion. She goes into forward movement, and so that, and she keeps, even to herself, I think, even in private moments, she doesn't allow herself to break down or to deal with that stuff. And so that was a challenging thing, but not a thing that was something I didn't accept. It just took me a while to understand it. And when I did, then I felt like I started to really fly with her, so.
Was there, I just want to ask that the first time you light up a cigarette in the car, just over the belly, was there any part of you that was like, this is really hard, even though it's pretend?
Yeah, well, there was a day when I had the belly on and we were shooting outside. I think it was the day when I was posting the pictures when Walt had disappeared. And so I had the belly on and I actually was smoking out in the strip mall where we were filming. And there were some horrified people looking outside, looking out of a restaurant like, lady is very pregnant, she's smoking. So they didn't take that very well.
You balanced it out with the martini.
I had the martini balanced on the belly and the smoke, and so.
Fine, it's almost
It's
done.
fine. It was good.
What about you, Aaron? What's been some stuff that's been tough?
I think probably when Jesse shot Gail was really when he obviously turned into a really bad person. Because I mean, he killed probably the nicest guy on the show. You know, I mean, Gail was just such a sweet, kind person. And so all of season 3, after the death of Jane, you know, he blamed himself for all of that. So all of season 3, he was trying to convince himself that he was the bad guy. I mean, he kept saying that. And
Season 4, yeah.
Oh.
Because you killed him at the end of 3, right?
Well, no, I killed Gail at the end of 3, but after Jane died at the end of season 2,
I'm sorry.
when he gets out of rehab, he's telling Walt that, you know what, he accepts who he is, and who he is the bad guy. And so at the end of season 3, he proves that by pulling the trigger, and it was really rough.
What about you, Brad?
We mentioned the death of Jane, and I think that was a key part of this, is that, you know, whenever anybody says he's going to go from Mr. Chips to Scarface, or he's going to turn from good to bad, it's a very subjective thing. Just like if I said, can you get me a big sandwich? The idea of what is big. So there was a turn here for when the culpability of Walt in Jane's death. And when it first came in, the script had it where she starts choking and Walt takes her shoulder and pushes her back on her back so that she would choke to death. Directly involved.
Oh, creepy laugh.
That was sweet. Directly involved in this woman's death. And to the credit and to illustrate the support that we received all throughout the series from our network, AMC, and our studio, Sony, they gave notes to Vince that said, hold it, wait. We feel it's too quick, it's too soon for that type of egregious act to happen at that stage. Because it was still second season for him to leap to that point. And Vince rethought about it and came up with a different plan, and we worked out on the day how to do this, and that Walt wouldn't see her fall back onto her back because he's trying to wake up Jesse, and that jostling would make her fall back naturally. And so he's culpable. So the culpable moment for Walt is when he recognizes that this girl could die, and what does he do then? I think it turned out beautifully, and it was a way of that type of talk about alchemy, about bringing a studio and a network and the writing minds together to just make some adjustments so that everybody is on the same page as far as the timeline.
It was tough for you to play. I was there. It was really hard for you, wasn't it?
It was, that was really difficult. Yeah.
Are there any other moments that you can think of that when you wrote them you were like, yeah, this is maybe a little too much, even for this?
Oddly enough, one of my proudest moments, the writers and I have this, my excellent writers and I wish they could be here as well today for you guys to meet them. It was season 1, and it was not as dramatic a moment as some of these others, like Jane dying or Jesse shooting Gail and whatnot. It was actually season 1, and it was the moment when, in the 4th episode, when Walt gets this Deus Ex Machina kind of help from previously unknown to the viewer, unknown quarters. We meet Gretchen and Elliot Schwartz, and we realize that Walt used to work with them, and they are very wealthy, and they seem like very nice folks, and they say to Walt, because Skyler intervenes and tells them that Walt has cancer, they say, we're going to pay for your cancer treatment, we're going to give you a job, it's going to be wonderful. Essentially, they throw him a life preserver. And he says, in that 4th episode of the series, he says, essentially, he says no. And he goes instead back to cooking crystal meth. And that was, I think, the moment I'm most proud of in the writer's room, even though at the time it was not nearly as dramatic as many of the things that happened since. But it was the moment that we, all of us in the writer's room, argued a lot and hashed it out amongst ourselves and said, wait a minute, what the hell kind of character is this who would turn this down? Because he's a good guy who's doing a bad thing because for good reasons. But then we realized at that moment, this is a man who's very prideful to a fault. And we really realized, once we got over our fear of doing it, we really realized we had something with this character at that point. That was, I think, our proudest moment.
Excellent. Yes, next question.
Hello. My question is for Anna and Vince. I feel like I'm in the minority whenever I say that Skyler is one of my favourite characters. Because she sacrifices so much and even allows herself to become a pariah in the eyes of her son. So I was wondering what your views were when some fans tend to villainize her over the hero Walt.
Did you really need to do the air quotes on that? Was that necessary?
It doesn't matter. That accent makes everything sound important.
Is that Scottish? Is that a Scottish accent?
No, I came from Ireland.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Irish. I'm sorry. It's the acoustics. I would have known that.
I liked the air quotes. And your accent. It's beautiful. Well, I think that what I felt as we went along and that debate was going on about Skyler, I think at first Vince and I and the writers, we talked about it and we were a bit confused about it at first, but then when I went through it and processed it through the seasons, I thought it was interesting because in a show, you need a protagonist and you need an antagonist, and the brilliant thing about this show is that you have the anti-hero as the protagonist, and you need to be behind him, and the audience and the fans are really behind Walter White, and they need to stay behind him. So if she becomes somebody who becomes really sympathetic and you start siding with her too much, then I think it weakens how you feel about him. So if that had happened, I think it really would have undercut the entire thrust of the show. And so I felt it was sort of a really brilliant story point and construction in terms of what Vince and the writers did in an interesting way to have things really stay, to have the audience stay with Walt. And Skyler really, a lot of the personal, private stuff, as I was saying before, a lot of that stuff remained somewhat hidden to some degree with her. I also think that, it does say some things, some people may agree with this or not, but, it says some things about the way people may still see women and men and roles of wives and husbands and things like that, but that's a very complex subject, and so that's for a different day and a different time.
I think all those things are valid and true to some extent or another, but the audience is not monolithic. Everybody has their different reasons for liking or disliking a character, but one of the smartest things I've ever heard said on the subject, I was talking to a writer-producer from the TV show Key and Peele, and I'm sorry, it's a great show, by the way, check it out, if you haven't already. And I'm sorry, I'm like an idiot, I'm blanking on his name at the moment, but he's a great guy and a very astute guy, because we were talking about Skyler backstage at a Nerdist podcast, as a matter of fact.
Hey.
And he said, I think what it is people don't like characters who are powerless. And not to say Skyler is powerless. Skyler as a character is very powerful, but she does find herself in a box. And it really happens in the episode where Walt plays chicken with her. She says, "Walt, get out of the house. I will never tell the police on you, provided you stay the hell away from our family." And he calls her. It's not a bluff, but he basically plays chicken with her and says, "Call the police on me. I don't care. I'm sticking around." And she calls him, and when the moment comes, at that moment, she can't, in front of her children, in front of her nearly adult child who's bewildered, she can't go through with it for very, I think, good reasons. It's just a hard thing to do, and he's, from that point on, he's really put her in a box, and people don't want to identify with powerless characters, because God knows we don't want to be powerless. We find ourselves, from very often, I'll speak for myself, find myself feeling very powerless from time to time. I don't want my fictional characters to feel that way, to be that way too. I want to be able to invest in them and viscerally through them feel powerful. That's why I like.
If any audience wants to knows about being powerful, it's the superheroes out here.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be a superhero with superpowers, but I agree with you.
So I think those are a very astute statement on his part.
So we don't have any more time for Q&A because we have a very special clip to show. How fast is your question? Okay, make it fast.
Okay. First off...
Oh, damn it.
First off, Reddit may think that Samuel L. Jackson is the danger, but you, Brian, are the danger.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Oh, you're looking it up? Oh, dude, come on, you gotta show me.
Okay. So the first season, Walt was providing for his family, then it became a fight for survival, and then finally a quest for power. What is Walt's current motivation and drive?
All right, so subset 2 of that question, what was Walt's current motivation?
Empire. He's in the empire business. His ego is peaking. He's never felt this before in his life. To have this kind of power as an adult, he's never ever had that. And it got to him. He succumbed to it like it was an aphrodisiac. And he is helpless, really, in that sense now. We're talking about being powerful and powerless.
But in that very last episode, is that enough for him? And maybe is it about, also on top of that, putting back the pieces of his family together at that point?
Yes. So that's a good point.
No, I mean, but Empire, absolutely, but then the Empire feels shallow.
Yeah, no, I mean, and then it comes together and it takes a full circle, and he gets to the point where he realizes Skylar's right. How much is enough? And now it's time to put the pieces back together. So he's constantly shifting and changing still.
All right, so I do want to get to the clip, but just really quickly, Vince, are you satisfied with the way the show ends? Do you think people will be satisfied with the way you wrapped it up?
I'm going to start by talking about myself. I am so sad this show is over. I'm going to miss these guys so much. I'm going to miss you guys. I'm going to miss coming to Comic-Con. I'm sad, but I am satisfied by the ending. I hope you will be too. We're really, my writers and I, everyone in front of the lens and behind it, I think is feeling very good about it, and we are going to show you something special now, I think.
Yeah, this is a good chunky piece of the first episode of the next one. So here you go, never before seen footage from Breaking Bad. Once again, like Aaron Paul, who looks like my brother or cousin, and a gun, Bob Odenkirk, RJ Mitty, Dean Norris. Breaking Bad premieres August 11th, Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, and then Talking Bad will be on later after that. So thank you so much.